Hello, everyone. Hello, it's time to talk some boxing. Yes, it is. It's time to talk boxing. Got a lot of things to get through. So, fingers crossed we can get through all of it. That would be good. And also, I want people to get involved as well. Let me know what you think about. There's a lot going on with the heavyweights, actually, which seems to be the case, I guess, recently, just because it seems to be the division that when it's thriving, boxing's thriving, and it seems to be thriving at the moment and doing a pretty good job. So yeah, that's good. That's good to see. And there's a couple of really interesting things coming out of AJ and Fury. AJ coming out and saying that he'll finish Fury in the fight, and he'll basically Tyson Fury can do all of his herky jerky or his little warm up act he called him actually a little, I guess, because Tyson Fury tends to do little comedy sketches, or not even just comedy sketches but little mind games beforehand, and AJ said, "Oh, I love that," and kind of just said, "Well, to be honest with you, those mind games they're not big deal. They're not a big deal. I can handle those, and actually I'll get in the ring, I'll do the fighting, and I'll come out on top." So a little bit, I think, tongue in cheek, and he's trying to start back and forth. Tyson Fury, who did an interview today, actually. I don't know whether it was filmed today. It looked like it was. So Isaac Lowe, who is Tyson Fury's best mate, he's fighting this week, and Tyson Fury's there. And Andrew McCall from IFL interviewed Tyson Fury, and it was a very, very weird interview. Tyson Fury started off by saying, which I'm assuming is tongue in cheek, that first of all, he stopped training. He's having a week of training because there's no clear date in sight. Nothing's been confirmed. And then he also said, well, okay, yeah, that's happened. And also, I've been drinking 8 to 12 lagers of beer a day or something ridiculous, which I'm assuming is him, having one of his, uh, let's say, having a very interesting relationship with the truth, and more kind of tongue in cheek, because one, he obviously has had problems with drinking in the past. I think he said before, like a couple of months ago, that he hasn't touched a beer in like 6 to 9 months. And now he's saying that apparently he's drinking loads every day, and that kind of then rings alarm bells, because you think, oh, is this the Tyson Fury of the Klitschko fight? But I don't think it is. I think it's maybe just he's feeling. He did look like he felt a little bit down potentially, probably just because he's frustrated with the fact that nothing's been finalized. And then he also said that he needs a big pot of money basically to say that the fight's going to happen. So there was a lot of backlash that came from this, because I saw a lot of comments on Facebook, on Instagram, all social media platforms saying, "Oh, that's a contradiction, because you always say it's not about the money, but now all of a sudden it is about the money. So what's happened? How come you're saying it's all about the money when you always say I don't fight for money?" And apparently his what was it? His purse went to what was it? His purse went to apparently his Wilder purse went to charity, which I don't know if that's true, but if it did, fantastic. But I think it's a bit harsh in a way, because clearly it's a huge fight. As a fighter, you want to come out. Tobias, thank you very much for joining as well. Tobias says, I do feel Joshua is a favourite for the Fury fight. Wow. Everyone seems to think Fury wins on points, but I don't think he'll be able to keep Joshua off him for 12 rounds. That's really interesting. I think, most people, experts, non-experts, fans, they all tend to think that Fury is going to be just too skillful, too slick. He's that master boxer, and he's added a different dimension to his game, I guess. In that Wilder fight, being able to show that actually he can come forward, and he's got some power which probably people didn't think he had, including me, really, in the past. So I think it was more a case of he just used to be very, very fleet-footed, so he boxed on his toes, and if you box on your toes, you can't generate much power. But now he, not well, I say he doesn't all the time. He's it's a hybrid form, really, of he'll dance around, he'll use his movement, and then when he gets in range, he plants his feet, bap, and then comes out. And he's quite good at that. And he did pretty well, I thought. Actually, I mean, let's be honest, he did very well against Deontay Wilder. It was a very, very impressive victory. I'm quite a big AJ fan. I've been to quite a few of his fights, and I think we saw something similar with him, I guess, against Pulev, who is not the same caliber, I don't think, as Deontay Wilder, but he had a hybrid form where he used his old AJ attributes that he has, which is that ruthless nature, the punch power, the punch combinations and variations, and really being aggressive and on the front foot. And then he also had that mixture, which is boxing on the back foot, like he did against Ruiz, and then he just used both those styles. A lot of people said that he wasn't able to gel them well enough together, like it didn't look seamless, and it looked like he was fighting kind of two different ways in the fight. I actually thought he boxed quite well against Pulev, but in saying that, would it be enough to beat Fury? Can he fight like that? I don't know. Let's see. And Rendezvous says, I don't think AJ is smart enough to beat Fury. That's an interesting one. I think, again, like Fury's obviously seen as someone who's got this boxing IQ that's clearly superior to AJ's, isn't it? People have got this idea that Tyson Fury, his cricket IQ, his boxing IQ even, is a lot better than AJ's, and I half agree and I half don't. I'll explain to you why I don't agree to a degree. That's a lot of rhymes. So Anthony Joshua, if you look at him, he's constantly developing his game, right? He's clearly developing. He's an Olympic gold medalist. Yes, I do think he boxes order, etc. But he seems like the type of person that always wants to improve. And if you look at him bringing in Angel Fernandez as well and other people, he's clearly not afraid to box different ways. I think, and actually, this is a really good point, and I'll bring this up from Tobias. He says, I just think Joshua's boxing ability is very underrated. And I think that is true to a degree. I think his boxing ability is very underrated because if you think about it, you can't win an Olympic gold medal without boxing ability. He's clearly got boxing IQ. He is a very well-schooled fighter. And in fact, a lot of people, I think maybe they're saying that he does have very good boxing ability, but Fury is better at adapting. So Fury will adapt to a fighter, and maybe it's a case of Fury would have seen a lot of fighters that fight similarly to Joshua, but Joshua wouldn't have fought a lot of people, seen a lot of people that fight similarly to Fury. So how do you prepare for someone like Fury, where he's so unorthodox? He can fight in different ways, southpaw, orthodox. He can also fight forward now. Apparently, he can fight on the back foot. He's got very good movement. And then on the other hand, you've got AJ, who again is very well schooled, but he is quite orthodox in the way he fights. Even the both styles that he adopted, and then also when he fought against Pulev, he did everything very well. It's similar to like Errol Spence is a good example. He is a very good fighter, and he does the basics or the fundamentals extremely well. And I kind of see that for the most part with AJ. Whereas you have Terence Crawford, I guess you can say is Tyson Fury in this equation, who can switch it. He can come forward, he can go back, he's got good movement. And that's the matchup that I'm seeing here. But AJ is always evolving, he's always improving. And we've seen that in the last couple of fights. So I know people are saying that he looks tentative. I don't think he looked tentative against Pulev. I thought he looked calculated. He looked a lot better in the way that he was fighting. And he didn't just jump in there for the sake of it. And I think that was really, really important. What do you guys think, though, about... I don't know if you've heard it. It's on IFL TV, Tyson Fury's interview. It was only... I think it was a couple of hours ago it was released, so I don't know if everyone would have seen it in the chat. But if you have, let me know what you think of it, because I thought it was just a very, very strange interview. And I think it's maybe they caught him on a day where he just wasn't feeling great, and that's why he came out with some kind of bizarre comments. And do we think this is going to happen? Because I was pretty set on saying that it's going to happen, and everyone's telling me from everywhere that, yeah, it's definitely going to happen, it's definitely going to happen. I mean, they still haven't said that it's on yet. They're saying, oh, yeah, it's going to happen, but it's not official. So they can say all they want, but until it actually happens. And Tyson Fury kept on saying there's things going on in the background, that you don't know about, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's not good. That doesn't sound good at all. That sounds like something's holding this up. And what is it? And then when he mentioned that Deontay Wilder, he's like, oh, I could potentially fight him next. And I was like, what? And so that made me think that, okay, well, if that's the case, then we're in trouble, because it means that Deontay Wilder, that mediation that he's been going through, is causing issues. And if that is the case, then yeah, I don't know. And Tobias says here, and yeah, another obstacle that seems to be in the way is Usyk, and he says it looks like Usyk might cause an issue. And I think he might, and that's why I put it in the banner below. And I heard an interview with Krasuk, who is Alexander Usyk's manager, and he basically said, like, you know what, are we really unhappy with the WBO because they sanctioned the fight? So to be honest, I think on that front, the WBO are happy with it, so that's a good sign. It's now a question of, well, when you look at it, they need to try and make Usyk Joyce, because if they make Usyk Joyce, then obviously Usyk is now right to one side. They don't need to worry about it. But on the other hand, you've got Usyk who's saying, well, actually, I want that Joshua fight. I've been waiting a year and a half or whatever it is, and I want to fight him. And I think he wants substantial step-aside money. And I don't think he's been offered it, because the WBO have just said, well, we're going to sanction this. So I think Eddie Hearn and Bob Arum have taken that as, well, you can't get in our way, basically. So why should we pay you step-aside money, I think. So let's see how that goes. That's going to be interesting. But yeah, it could be as well. Tobias says, does anyone really want to watch Wilder Fury 3? I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing it, but would I like to see it rather than AJ Fury? No. I'd probably actually prefer to see Wilder-Ruiz, to be honest with you. If Ruiz is actually fighting, and that brings me quite nicely onto it as well, is that have people seen Ruiz? I mean, his legs look great, but then I saw a picture of him from like 2013 and they look exactly the same. So he's always had like really hench legs, but it's obviously his upper body, his torso. So I wonder whether he's worked on that. But yeah, I would watch it, of course, and there'd be a bit of intrigue, but it's not a massive fight for me anymore. Rendezvous says, what Fury says might sound foolish at times, but his boxing IQ is top notch. Cannot deny that. Yeah, I 100% agree, Rendezvous. His boxing IQ is top notch, and he goes into that fight the favourite. He does, and I'm happy to admit that. I'm happy to admit that he's a favourite, and probably rightly so, just because of the recent performances. He does sound foolish. I mean, he tends to contradict himself a lot. And he's actually the type of person that, and I probably would never get an interview with him now, because if anyone that watches the channel will know that I interview boxers. So I'm actually uploading my second interview that I've done with Johnny Fisher after his debut on Sky Sports. Heavyweight contender Johnny Fisher. He's only 22, made his debut, knocked out Matt Gordon in the first round, and so I sorted out an interview with him, and I'm going to be uploading it after this live. But yeah, I mean, I would love to get an interview with Tyson Fury, but if he listens to these videos, he probably wouldn't give me one, because I think he's not sensitive, but I just think he doesn't like it when people say anything, maybe, I don't know, call him a liar or whatever else it might be potentially. So he keeps his circle small, which is fair enough. It's up to him. But yeah, I think for him, I don't know what it is, but it's funny because I've heard Kugan Cassius say this, that there's two types of Tyson Fury. The first one is a serious one. The second one is the one who just kind of messes about and you just can't take him seriously. And I feel like that's the case. Like, there's one that you just can't take everything he says as gospel. Tobias says, do we think Ruiz can beat Wilder, or would beat Wilder? His chin seems to be very good, so Wilder's power might not phase him. I think Wilder's power phases anyone, if I'm being honest with you. And we saw that Joshua's power obviously phased Ruiz when he floored him, but it wasn't like his head was cleared, to be honest with you. So yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to see, wouldn't it? You know what I would love to see as well, and I'll touch on it in a second, is Wilder versus Joyce, because Joyce has got an iron chin, right? He just looks like an unbelievable, his chin just looks incredible. And Wilder obviously is probably the biggest puncher in the division. So yeah, and actually, to be fair, in saying that, a lot of people think Joshua is as well. Because if you look at Wilder's resume, I don't think it doesn't make fantastic reading. Before the Ortiz Fury fights, it's just a load of. I mean, people said tomato cans. That's really harsh because like everyone's fighters are fighters, and or myself, but they're very low level fighters compared to other people's CVs. Like really poor, some of the people on the CV. But do I think Ruiz will beat Wilder? If Ruiz is fit enough and his feet have got better because his feet are very slow, if he's managed to improve his footwork and he comes in quite light compared to what he normally does, I don't see why he couldn't beat Wilder, to be honest with you, because I think he'd outbox him. And I don't think Wilder would fare well with his quick hands as well. The only thing that Wilder has going from his reach, I guess, and what Wilder is quite a lot taller than Ruiz, right? So, but then punching down isn't particularly easy either. So, I don't know. I think honestly, it's probably a 50-50 fight, I would say. But I'd actually edge towards Ruiz personally. I would edge towards Ruiz if we're talking about both fighters in their kind of top condition, top mental state. And Wilder looks in a very weird state. Has anyone seen that picture of him like lying back and he's got the like what is it? It's like whiskey or something, and it's a gun on the table, and it's just weird. The dude is a strange guy. He's a very, very strange, very, very strange guy. Extremely strange. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. Do you think Ruiz would beat Wilder? It's a very good shout. I think it would be a fantastic fight. So they're touting it for later this year potentially because they're both PBC fighters. So I think who is it? So it's Andrew Ruiz versus Arreola first, Chris Arreola. That will be on pay-per-view. I can't believe it's on pay-per-view. But anyways, that's on pay-per-view. And then I guess if he comes through that fight and maybe Wilder has another fight as well, then they can make that the end of this year. And that's a big fight. Two former world champions, right? They've both taken, or Ruiz taken 2 losses, but the first loss to Joseph Parker was pretty controversial in a way because a lot of people thought he nicked that fight, to be fair. So yeah, I think for me it's a very interesting fight, very, very interesting fight. So let's see how that one goes, and hopefully we get it. I'd love that fight. I love Dylan White versus either one of those as well, to be honest with you. If Dylan White can get past Povetkin, that is, which is only in a couple of weeks' time now, so that'd be a cracker. Fury said he needed big money for that, and I kind of already touched upon that, so I don't want to anymore. I don't think Joseph Parker, and Josh Buatsi have changed trainers. That's a really interesting one because Joseph Parker obviously had a very, very average performance against Junior Fall where he should have won that pretty convincing. He didn't end up getting a pretty wide decision where he shouldn't have really. Got quite fortunate with the scorecards. Some people actually thought he may have potentially lost that fight. I think he probably just nicked it. But yeah, not a good showing from him. He split with Kevin Barry, who's a long-term trainer. Now there's a lot of talks and rumors saying that he is going to be trained under Andy Lee. I don't think it's been officially confirmed, but it's pretty much. And I don't think he's made any issues with hiding it either, or tried to hide it even. So I think that'll be an interesting one. Tyson Fury said that it'll be a really good fit. So in the interview today, he said it'll be a really good fit for Joseph Parker because Andy Lee is not a boxing coach, he's a boxing teacher. So he's someone who really studies the game, and Joseph Parker can learn off him. Whether they'd be a good fit or not, that is the main question, I think. That's the main question as to whether they would be a good fit. So let's see how it goes, though. Yeah. Rendezvous says Ruiz was exposed in his rematch. Just keep him at 1 arm distance. He's harmless. Yeah, but to be fair, Rendezvous, he did go into that fight severely overweight, like more overweight than he did the first fight against Joshua. The first fight, like he was okay, yeah, like he's clearly not body beautiful. Second fight, I think it was like 2 stone or something, or 1.5 stone. And at first, the commentators were like, "Oh, he looks really good on the pads." And I'm like, anyone can look good on the pads, even if you put on weight, because these guys are elite fighters, right? And then as soon as he got in the ring, his feet already slow. So if his feet are already quite slow, and then he's put on extra weight, it's going to be impossible. So Joshua just box around him, and yeah, you can say that he's harmless if you keep him at arm's distance. But the issue with that rendezvous is that Wilder doesn't have the boxing ability to win rounds, right, with a jab. I'm being totally honest with you. His jab is actually quite good, but he doesn't work on it enough. So it's not really improved, and he's definitely got the framework there to do it, but he doesn't. He relies way too heavily on his right hand and his power from his left hook as well, and that's really it, to be honest with you. And what he does is, and as we saw in the Ortiz fight, he will lose the majority of rounds to just set up that one fight. So for me, that would have been, yeah. It's just I don't see him winning rounds against Ruiz, and then the only way that he can beat him is by knocking him out. And to knock him out, he needs to come to distance, and that then leaves him open to getting counterpunched, which is what Ruiz is. No, that's Ruiz's forte. So I don't know. It's going to be. I mean, Wilder's a lot quicker in terms of his, like, the way he punches is damn quick. So I think either way that could end very, very explosively. But I think it'll be a fantastic fight either way. Tobias says, if you could have been at any fight in history, what would it be? I think some of the great middleweight fights of the 80s in the US would have been unbelievable. Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously, there's your really cliche answers like the Thriller Manila and, what else? Rumble in the Jungle, Mike Tyson versus Evander Holyfield. All these types of fights, you can say those because those fights are really the cliche ones. But yeah, in the 80s there were some ridiculous fights. Obviously, you had the Four Kings there as well. What fight would I have liked to have been at? If we're talking about recently, the either of the Canelo GG fights, or I'd love to have been at those, just ringside, like really close, just to see how good they are. And some of the punches they took, like these guys' chins are just ridiculous. I don't know. It's a really tough question. If I had to pick one, if I had to pick one fight I wanted to be at, what fight would it be? There's loads, There's so many good fights to pick from. Who do you pick? I mean, even though it's a bit of a strange one, Prince Hamed was like so good. Nassim Hamed. He was so good, but he wasn't really in any fights that I would say, oh, actually, I wanted to see that fight. I'm trying to think who else. Tobias says, who did you think won those? Oh, here you go. Tobias says, who do you think won those two GG Canelo fights? I think the first one GG won, the second one Canelo won. That's my personal opinion on the fight. Yeah, I think the first one was like both of them were close. Like both of them were really, really close fights. But I think GG did so much in that first fight. Like he deserved to win that first fight. Canelo, I think, was more the aggressor. Even then, I think there's an argument to say that GG it could have been a draw, but I think really it should be one apiece at least. For me, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So let's see. Tobias says Eubank versus Ben, maybe. Yeah, that was a cracking fight. Ward versus Gatti, actually. Gatti versus Ward. That's the fight I'd want to be at. Eubank versus Ben was a cracking fight as well. But Gatti versus Ward, again, that's a bit of a cliche answer, but I'd love to be at that fight. I'd love to have been at that fight. There's so many good fights. So many good fights, aren't there? One recently, Baranchek versus Zepeda. That was a beauty. That was an absolute beauty, that was. Zepeda versus Baranchek. What was it, 8 knockdowns? Ridiculous. And then a knockout. I just says, post-modern boxing discussion, enjoying it. Good to hear it. Yeah, what else do you guys want to discuss? Actually, I'm happy to discuss anything. Really, I'm pretty flexible, but so people do have let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I think just leading on from my comment on Joseph Parker, I guess Andy Lee will be interested to see whether he can reignite that fire in him, because he's a heavyweight who clearly had that before. He won the world title and then just lost it very tamely, I think, to Anthony Joshua, unfortunately. And then since then, it's kind of been a roller coaster ride, unfortunately. You know, lost to Dylan White, which wasn't a fantastic win, and then wasn't a fantastic showing even. And then other fights he's had have been Mickey Mouse fights, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. So apparently he might be fighting Derek Chisora, which would, I guess, make sense, especially if he's going to come here and train under Andy Lee. I just think I really do want him to become more aggressive. He's way too passive in the way he fights. Josh Buatsi has left Robert McCracken, which is really interesting, and he's gone to Virgil Hunter, who obviously used to train Amir Khan and the great Andre Ward as well. And what a fighter he was, and a light heavyweight just like Joshua Buatsi. So, I mean, if Andre Ward's around that camp, which he's very, very close with Virgil Hunter, then that's going to be really beneficial to Joshua Buatsi. And Boxing Talk with Ade, which is a really good channel, by the way, so do check it out. He's very good. And he's actually one of the guys who he's one of the first boxing channels I started watching as someone who didn't do interviews, it was just boxing discussions. And he said does that mean that we don't have elite trainers here in the UK? Because a lot of fighters tend to go abroad, right, to go and train. And so does that mean that we don't have the plethora of talent maybe here in the UK that we thought we did? Because you've got people like David Caldwell, who's very good. You've got Joe Gallagher. You've got, Roy McCracken. Who else from the UK? Oh, Adam Booth. So are people, are fighters thinking that actually these guys are not elite? Are they thinking actually we need to go abroad? Virgil Hunter, we know how good a trainer and coach he is, but I mean, to go all the way to a different country to train, to me, like Ade was saying, it definitely shows that there's a lack of faith in some of the British trainers here, which is a bit disappointing, to be honest with you. It is disappointing. And then leading on, I guess, unless guys will fire over with the questions and comments, please do. Otherwise, I'll go on to the others. So I think it's an interesting one because Clarissa Shields obviously won on the weekend. And it was one of those things that I looked at it and I just thought she boxed really well. But the opponent, which again, it was for undisputed title, she just didn't get, I don't know what it was. It was one of those things that she just didn't, obviously she's an X Factor fighter in her ability, and she's an X Factor fighter in the way that she talks. She is clearly the best in potentially the whole of women's boxing, right? That's how good she is. She's a double Olympic gold medalist. She's now undisputed in 2 different weight divisions, I think. Multi-weight world champion. It doesn't like anyone can beat her. And after the first round, the opponent, Mary Eve DeCare, I think it was, just didn't even look bothered. She was just like, okay, getting outboxed here. And Clarissa Shields is someone who, I think the only thing I can say against her, the only thing I can say is her power. Like, she doesn't seem to have that knockout power. And maybe that's a part of the reason why, unfortunately, she doesn't get the publicity that she deserves. But to be honest with you, if she was a man, she would. So it's a bit unfair, I think. It's not a bit unfair, it's very unfair. So she opened up talks, or not talks, but she said, look, I'm open to fighting Katie Taylor even. She said, I'll go down to 147, right? So I'll go down to 147 to fight her. I think that's probably a push for Katie Taylor, to be honest with you. Maybe Clarissa Shields can make that. She probably can. But can Katie Taylor get up to 147? Probably not. I think she'd be too heavy. So I doubt it's going to happen. But another fight that's more interesting, which Eddie Hearn has apparently suggested and proposed, is Caressa Shields versus Savannah Marshall. And Savannah Marshall is the only woman to beat Caressa Shields in the amateurs or pros. So, and that was in the amateurs, by the way. And Caressa Shields was only like 17, I think, and Savannah Marshall was like 21, 22 something, I think, or older. So, but Savannah constantly says after her fights, like, I would beat her, I want that fight next. She's now world champion, and I think Caressa Shields definitely wants to fight her. She wants to try and, she says, shut her up. So that would be a fantastic fight. If they can make a 2-fight deal for that, that would be great. I would love to see that. I really would. I just think that would be a great fight, and there would be a lot more excitement around that fight, because you think, okay, right, this is someone who is actually, so Caressa Shields potentially the best pound for pound women's boxer, maybe Casey Taylor as well. You're looking at those two, and then you've got someone who's actually beaten Caressa Shields in the amateurs. So she's beaten Caressa in the amateurs when she was younger, but it doesn't matter because she's still beaten. It's her only loss in boxing ever, right? So there will be that tension there. Savannah Marshall will definitely be saying, the same thing's going to happen. Claressa will have her backup saying, you know what, I'm going to avenge this loss, and actually it meant nothing. Also experienced. So that will be fireworks for the press conference and also in the fight, I think, as well. And for those of you who don't know, there's actually some big fighting on the weekend. But if you do want to watch it, it'll be on DAZN, which is an app that you can now get in the UK as well. It's a boxing app. It's $1.99 a month. And it's Chocolatito versus, so it's Roman Gonzalez, who's Chocolatito, versus Juan, who is it? Juan Francisco Estrada, who is, it's for a unified, I think, super flyweight titles. And it's going to be a cracker. I mean, if you want to see an all action packed fight, like Tobias was mentioning, Eubank Ben, this is at a lighter weight, but it's going to be action packed. It's a rematch as well. Chocolatito Roman Gonzalez won that the first time, and it's going to be a great fight. Really, really good fight. Two potential pound for pounders. Definitely have been pound for pounders in the past, so that would be a cracking fight. Seriously, it'll be such a good fight. And then on top of that, you've got Cecilia Breakhouse versus Jessica McCaskill, which will be fantastic as well for the undisputed undisputed welterweight crown, which will be great. That'll be a really, really good fight. Looking forward to that. And then on top of that, you've also got another title fight on there. So I'll probably be doing a live watch along, but again, I would try my best. It's going to be at like 4 a.m., so we'll see how that goes. That'll be interesting. Whether I manage to wake up or not, we'll see. It's another discussion, but yeah. Okay, cool. Unless there's any more questions or comments, I think I might wrap it up. Thank you, though, everyone, for joining. Please do remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really does help. I really appreciate everyone's support. And I'll see you guys in the next video. And thank you, everyone who has subscribed. It really, really does help. And here we go. Go on. We've got a question here before we finish up. Tobias says, who do you think is the best current lightweight? Some very good ones out there right now, all at a very, very high level. Yeah, there's some fantastic lightweights. So just to reel them off quickly, Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, Tank Davis. I mean, obviously Lomachenko. You can't forget him. He's still there. If you want to say who's the best current lightweight, I think it's hard to disagree with Teofimo Lopez, which is probably the answer you were thinking I was going to give, to be honest, Tobias. And the reason why is because it's pretty obvious. He's the undisputed champion at lightweight. He's beaten Lomachenko, who was the man at the time. I think 135 lightweight is probably still a little bit too big for Lomachenko, so I think it's a different ball game. Fighting at lightweight, but in saying that, he still had some phenomenal victories there. So yeah, Ryan Garcia had a very good win against Luke Campbell, to be fair, but again, it's not the type of win that you can say is comparable to beating Lomachenko. Devin Haney hasn't really fought anyone yet, but Devin Haney seems, and I could be wrong, right? And I don't think anyone's avoiding anyone else, but Devin Haney seems to be the only one that the other fighters don't seem to be particularly interested in fighting him. And what that makes me think is either they think Devin Haney's too skilled right now, or they just think, why do I need him right now? And if he's too skilled, it might be a question of actually we'll fight him later once we've developed. And I kind of feel that way about Ryan Garcia and Teofimo, for example. Teofimo Lopez seems like he has progressed and definitely adapted, and his game has come along a lot more than some of the other fighters like Devin or Ryan Garcia. Tank Davis is a multi-weight world champion, so fine, but he has problems with weight issues and attitude. So he is probably one of the most talented. A lot of people say he is the most talented out of the lot, and it's actually very hard to disagree in terms of talent. But he just he needs to get his head screwed on right. To be honest with you, we don't want to see another Adrian Broner. And I'm being perfectly honest with you because Adrian Broner did. I mean, look, the things he accomplished, 1% of boxers will accomplish it. Okay, he's multi-weight world champion. People can only dream of some of the stuff he's done, but for the ability and potential that he hasn't fulfilled it, and we don't want the same for Deontay Davis. So I think he just needs to really, really sort himself out and just kind of just stick. Like, you can enjoy your stuff after boxing, but if you're going to box, then at least come on, like, take it seriously, have the right attitude, don't get into trouble outside the ring, just kind of be one track minded. And I feel like that's what you need to be if you want to be a great. If you want to be a very good boxer or a world class boxer, then fine, yeah, do whatever you want. But if you want to be a great, which I feel like these lightweights do, then you've got to fight the best. And one thing that really frustrated me about Teofimo Lopez was I was so happy after the Lomachenko fight. He said, look, everyone wants, I think I've said this so many times, but he said everyone wants Money Mayweather, purses or kind of figures. But what people forget is that you have to go through being Pretty Boy Floyd first, right? And he said, so if you want to go through being Pretty Boy Floyd first, then you need to be fighting all the best fighters, maybe not getting paid the millions and millions and millions that you're expecting, right? And then you will be able to earn those big purses. Now, he said that after the Lomachenko fight, right? Which is great. And I'm like, oh, fantastic. This, this kid or this fighter, this is what I want to hear. Like, he's willing to fight anyone. And actually, it's not a case of he's going to price himself out. And what does he do? He says, I want 10 million to fight Devin Haney. Which is like, okay, it's fine to know your worth, right? But you've just fought Lomachenko. The fight against Devin Haney probably isn't as big at the moment. So if you actually seriously want to fight him right now, then like you can't be saying I want 10 million. So either it's a case of, as I said, they just don't want to fight him, so they price themselves out, or he has just become delusional and he thinks that he's worth that much at the moment, which he's not. But yeah, I just think he's probably the number one. I just hope he keeps his head screwed on right as well. Like, money just seems to ruin some fighters and some people, and I think we've seen that in the past, and history repeats itself so many times. So I'm just hoping that these guys, they all fight each other, number one. Number two, they're clearly going to go up the weight divisions, especially Ryan Garcia, Devin, and Teofimo Lopez. They all have scope to go up to potentially, you're looking at light middle, even middle at kind of a stretch. Gervonta Davis has got small arms. He's like a T-Rex, but a very, very good T-Rex at that. So I don't think he will be going up. He's pretty small and stocky. He might go up to 140, which there's talks about him fighting for a regular title, which again, like, what is the point of fighting for a regular title? But anyways, but yeah, I can't see him going any higher than 140. And again, like, he'd get eaten up by Josh Taylor and Ramirez, I think, probably, if I'm being honest with you. So yeah, let's see how it goes. But the lightweights are really exciting, but it's become very frustrating because they keep on talking, saying, yeah, we're going to fight you, I'll knock you out, I earn more money than you, blah, blah, blah. And then Mike Tyson is trying to sort it out and instigate stuff. He's got them all on his podcast, hot boxing, and he's getting them to call each other and try and start beef so that actually, the fights happen. The only one actually realistically calling out someone, which, to be fair to him, he's doing it. There's two, actually. One is Devin Haney is calling out everyone. And he does seem serious, I think. Again, I don't know if he's pricing himself out, though, when they get to negotiations, but it doesn't even look like it's getting that far. So people are just saying, well, you're the email champ and you haven't fought anyone. So he's going to fight Linares next. That's a serious fight. If he can knock out Linares, then no one can say anything. Then people got to be like, you're a serious competitor. Okay, come on, let's take you on. At the moment, fine, I can get it. If he struggles against Linares, then it doesn't look good either and wins. So he's got to really make a statement. Ryan Garcia has kind of made that statement in a way with Luke Campbell. And he is the other one that seems to, like, he keeps on saying, I'm either going to fight Gervonta Davis or it was Manny Pacquiao. So Manny Pacquiao fight's fallen through. He wants Gervonta Davis. And Gervonta Davis is basically saying to him, oh no, I'm going to go to 140 because basically he can't make weight. So that's a shocker. Yeah. Anyways, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you very much, guys, for being on. If you do have any more questions, shoot. I'm just going because I think apart from Tobias, who's been very good, and Rendezvous, maybe Thursdays. I did Friday, didn't I? The last 2 weeks, Friday 6 p.m. I think maybe I should have stuck to that potentially for a slot, but it's fine. It's fine. It was all good. It was fantastic having everyone on. Please do remember to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. I really do appreciate it. And I will be releasing the Johnny Fisher heavyweight interview after this, so do keep an eye out for that. And again, please do like that, comment, share it around as well. He's a really nice guy, and you don't need to hear just me talking. Most of the time, it's not me. It's a fighter who clearly knows more about boxing and knows what he's talking about a lot more than me. So you probably better to listen to him. But yeah, I've got, as a lot of you will know as well, I do have a number of interviews that I've done with a range of people, from former world champions to people who, like Johnny Fisher making his debut, so, and everywhere in between, European champions, British champions, people from Australia, right, who have fought Naya Nue, people who just all sorts. So yeah, do check it out. It'll be fantastic. And yeah, thank you very much, guys. Have a fantastic eve, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you very much.